it is a good thing that we have a vast market in China. We provide them with the resources, they provide us with the technology so that we can develop our country. China is very developed. We have a lot to learn from China.
I believe the planning and the strategy has made China to be the world power leader. But China needs Africa too, so that we can be able to work together, partner together in terms of technological advancement and so many other businesses partnership for a mutual beneficial relationship.
China is doing so well with Africa, and we like their involvement and the relationship we are building, that China is building with Africa. It is a very great pleasure. It is an improvement to so many things and the investment that China is bringing into Nigeria and into Africa generally.
My people, last week, China hosted the 4th annual China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo, a major effort to deepen trade ties with Africa. And the numbers, massive. 4,700 companies, over 30,000 participants, one of the largest trade expos in the world. And more than $11 billion in deals signed on the spot. But just days before that, Beijing dropped the real bombshell. China is removing all tariffs on African exports. Yes, you heard that right. No taxes, no duties, just wide open access to the world's second largest economy. It sounds like a win. Exactly the kind of break Africa needs, especially at a time when the US is pulling back and slapping tariffs on developing economies. But here on the breakdown, we don't stop at the headlines. We ask the harder question. How will Africa respond? Because this is a huge opportunity, but only if we play it right. Will African nations keep flooding China with raw materials while the real profits are made overseas? Or will we use this access to finally industrialize, process our own goods, and export value-added products that create jobs, build wealth, and change the game? Because let's be clear, access to China's $17 trillion market could be the gateway to Africa's rise, but only if we decide to stop selling raw and cheap and start thinking long-term. So today on The Breakdown, we're unpacking what China's zero tariff really means for Africa. Will this bold new trade deal spark real transformation or just more of the same? Because let's be honest, Africa had duty-free access to the US market for over 20 years under AGOA, and we barely scratched the surface with it. We can't afford to waste another opportunity. We'll dive into what African leaders, businesses, and citizens must do right now to turn this window of access into a movement for continental transformation. And make no mistake, my people, this isn't just about tariffs. It's about a shifting world order and the role that Africa will choose to play this time. We're going to break it all down. But first, a big welcome to all of our new subscribers and members. I am so glad you're here. And if you're watching and haven't joined us yet, please consider this your personal invitation. Because here at Panagenius TV, we're not just building a channel. We're creating a global home for Black stories that are told with truth, with intention, and with care. And if that speaks to you, hit subscribe and tap the bell for alerts. Also, consider joining our membership community or dropping a super thanks to support our channel and help us remain independent and unapologetic. Also, follow me on all my socials at Sandra Babu-Boateng and subscribe to my personal YouTube channel, Sandra Babu-Boateng, to hear more from me, including interviews and coverage from events that I'm attending. All right, now, let's get into it.
This is Xinhua News. Economic and trade cooperation between China and Africa has demonstrated strong vitality, with a rapid increase in trade volume over the past 25 years, official data showed on Wednesday. China's total imports and exports with African countries increased from less than 100 billion yuan in 2000 to 2.1 trillion yuan in 2024, marking an average annual growth of 14.2%, according to the General Administration of Customs.
Okay, so let's break this down properly. When China says it's removing all tariffs on African exports, it makes headlines. Sounds like a game-changing invitation. Access to a $17 trillion economy. No taxes, no duties, no restrictions. But behind the flash, we need to understand the fine print and the reality on the ground. First, this isn't the first time China has offered tariff exemptions to Africa. In fact, over the past few years, China has gradually rolled out zero tariff policies to least developed countries. But this latest announcement expands that offer to up to 53 of the 54 African nations that have diplomatic ties with Beijing. Now, if you're wondering about the 54th country, the only one on the continent that doesn't have diplomatic ties with China, it's Eswatini. And my people, that's a story for another episode. But back to the 53 countries. That means, in theory, almost every country on the continent could benefit from this. But zero tariffs doesn't mean zero barriers. To qualify, African goods must still meet strict Chinese standards around packaging, labeling, quality, and inspection. That alone will disqualify many small producers who lack the infrastructure to meet those benchmarks. And for now, the policy applies largely to physical goods, not services, tech, or digital trade, where Africa could be competitive with the right investment. So while the doors are open, not everyone can walk through them yet. Now let's talk about the heart of this conversation. What is Africa actually exporting to China? According to the BBC and trade data, in 2023, Africa exported $109 billion worth of goods to China. But the overwhelming majority of that, over 90% in some countries, is raw materials: oil, gas, copper, cobalt, iron, cocoa, timber, and coffee. For example, Angola and Nigeria rely on petroleum for the bulk of their export income to China. The DRC sends massive amounts of cobalt and copper, the very minerals powering China's EV revolution. Even agricultural exports like cashew nuts, cocoa, and tea often go out raw, then come back to the continent as expensive finished product. Meanwhile, China exported $173 billion worth of goods to Africa just last year, most of it manufactured products, machinery, electronics, vehicles, textiles, steel, and chemicals. So in plain terms, Africa sends raw goods, China sends in finished goods, and makes the real money. My people, that's not trade. That's an extraction economy. We send our wealth raw and buy it back at premium. That's the reason Africa has remained at the bottom of the global value chain for decades. Because when you control the raw materials but not the processing, the packaging, or the profits, you're not winning. You're being mined. So yes, China's zero tariff offer is an opportunity, but only if Africa can use this moment to flip the script completely. Because if we continue exporting cocoa beans instead of chocolate, crude oil instead of petrochemicals, or bauxite instead of aluminum, then the tariff cuts will just speed up the flow of cheap inputs out and high-value imports back in. We've seen this before, colonialism 2.0, but with friendlier headlines. But imagine if Nigeria exported finished rubber products, if Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire sold packaged chocolate bars instead of just cocoa beans, if Ethiopia's textile factories exported designer garments to Chinese consumers, if Africa could convert even just 20 to 30% of its $109 billion exports into value-added products, it would add $20 to $30 billion in retained value annually across commodities like cocoa, rubber, oil, metals, and textiles. Add the economic multiplier effect. Think industry, jobs, skills, innovation, and the opportunity becomes transformative, not marginal. That's the shift. That's the power of value addition. And if we get that part right, This zero tariff deal doesn't just open doors, it opens industries, creates jobs, and builds wealth on the continent. So the question isn't whether this is a good offer, it's whether we're ready to meet it with a new strategy. Now, for entrepreneurs and business folks, I've dropped a members-only bonus episode just for you, breaking down how big this China-Africa trade opportunity really is and what you can do to tap in. This opportunity could be worth billions, but only if we act fast. Join our membership and check it out.
This sleek modern train connects major cities in Kenya. Funded largely by China, the Kenya Standard Gauge Railway began operations in 2017. From gleaming railways to state-of-the-art highways, ports and power plants, Chinese investments have reshaped the African landscape. Like Kenya's landmark railway, many of these projects were financed by Chinese entities, participating in Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. Since this initiative to improve connectivity and cooperation was launched in 2013, it has grown rapidly across the African continent.
53 out of 54 African countries have a memorandum of understanding with China on the Belt and Road Initiative.
But China's current economic slowdown, coupled with the prospect of Western trade restrictions and the uncertainties posed by a new US administration, have prompted a recalibration of economic ties between China and African nations.
Okay, so now that we understand what Africa is exporting and what it's not, it's time to look at the bigger picture. Why is China doing this? Because let's be clear, this is not just about tariffs. This is about strategy. And China doesn't move without one. Over the past 2 decades, China has been playing the long game in Africa and playing it quite well. From roads to railways, ports to power stations, telecom towers to digital networks, Chinese companies are building the backbone of African economies. And they're not doing it out of charity. They're doing it to control trade routes, shape policy environments, and lock in future influence. Let's break it down. 1, infrastructure control equals trade control. See, if you own the ports, you control the flow of goods. If you're building the railways, you dictate who moves what and at what cost. If you lay the digital cables, you hold the data and the keys to the economy of the future. In countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Zambia, and Angola, Chinese companies have financed and constructed massive infrastructure projects, often funded through Chinese loans, built by Chinese labor, and operated by Chinese firms. So when China says we're dropping tariffs, ask yourself, will African countries actually capture the value? Or will it be absorbed by the very logistics networks China controls? Because if China owns the trade infrastructure and benefits from tariff-free imports, then this isn't just generosity. It's vertical integration on someone else's soil. Number 2, strategic positioning in a changing world. This tariff offer isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening at a time when the US is pulling back, slapping tariffs on global South economies and retreating from multilateral trade. The EU is bogged down in internal politics, climate regulations, and its own economic challenges. And global supply chains are shifting fast. China is positioning itself as Africa's most reliable partner, offering win-win deals, no political strings, and now, zero tariffs. But the truth is, China needs Africa just as much. It needs African oil and minerals to fuel its industries. It needs African markets to absorb its oversupply of manufactured goods. And it needs African political backing on the global stage, especially at the UN, WTO, and BRICS. So this move isn't just trade, it's geopolitical investment for China. Number 3, soft power, hard reality. Through education, media partnerships, And now trade incentives, China is expanding its soft power across the continent. The zero tariff deal reinforces a powerful message. We're the ones opening doors while the West builds walls. And to many African leaders, yes, that message resonates.
China has shown good faith. China has shown that Africa is its friend. And it's obvious that all African countries are here to deepen the relationship.
I think this expo actually highlights a lot, not just the trade, but today it was clear that China wants to do more, want to cooperate with my country, Gabon.
But here's the hard reality. Opening doors is only half of the equation. What we walk through those doors with and for is what will define Africa's future. Because access means nothing if we're still exporting low and importing high. It means nothing if we don't invest in local industries, build processing capacity, and negotiate from a place of strength and strategy rather than desperation. So yes, China is playing the long game. The question is, are Africans doing the same? Because this zero tariff deal is not just a trade policy, it's a signal that the global order is shifting, and Africa has a rare chance to shift with it. But only if we stop being seen as a source and start showing up as a force.
I think that zero rating is extremely good. The problem with AGOA is that it's not bilateral. They make the decision, they can also withdraw the decision. It's a control tool, but this other one it's being given to you and you can benefit from it as long as you can work.
We discovered the opportunity in China. We saw that our varieties of chili we produce in Rwanda, they have a demand in China.
This business is what the Chinese model is. And then they also have a very serious system in their country supporting their export trade. You find that it's a lot easier for us to continue.
We like the Chinese products. I have my solar lights, I have my flippers, I'm happy.
Okay, so we've established the facts. China has opened the door. The opportunity is real. But the value we get from this moment depends entirely on how Africa shows up. This can't be business as usual because we've seen where that leads. Jobs created abroad, profits pocketed abroad, power consolidated abroad. If we want different results, we need a different strategy starting now. What does that look like? Number one, we need to add value, don't just export it. The number one priority should be value addition. It is no longer enough to be the world warehouse of raw goods. Africa must become the factory, the lab, the processing center. That means Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire investing in local cocoa processing and chocolate manufacturing, not just exporting beans. Nigeria producing petrochemicals and refined oil, not just crude. Zambia and DRC turning cobalt and copper into batteries, not just metal exports. Because guess what? Tariff-free access to China means finished African goods now have a fighting chance in global markets if we build them. And number two, we need to build processing infrastructure and fast. Governments must create special economic zones, invest in power, and reduce bottlenecks around ports and transport. Private sector leaders, diaspora investors, and entrepreneurs should be asking, what industries can I build locally to capture the value we've been giving away? And don't just wait on foreign capital. Let's start with what we have and scale from there. Number three, we need to diversify beyond commodities. You see, Africa's future is not just in mining and oil. It's in agro-processing, textiles, green energy, tech, and services. Countries like Rwanda are already exporting processed coffee, packaged under African-owned brands. Ethiopia has built real momentum in textile manufacturing, supplying major global brands. If those products now face zero tariffs in China, why not expand aggressively? And number 4, we need to empower SMEs and farmers. Zero tariffs will mean nothing if only big corporations benefit. Governments must step up to support small producers, cooperatives, and local entrepreneurs, the real engine of Africa's economy. That means investing in training, certification programs, quality control, financing, and digital tools to help them compete on a global stage. Because here's the truth. This is one of the reasons AGOA never reached its full potential. Many African entrepreneurs simply weren't equipped to meet the strict sourcing and compliance standards of global buyers. So they got left out of the game. This time must be different. If we want inclusive growth, we need to bring everyone to the table, not just multinationals. Empowering small businesses to export is not optional. It's a strategic necessity. And it's time for governments to treat it like one. And number 5, we need to negotiate smarter. African governments must stop accepting every deal with open arms and no clear strategy. This is the time to negotiate trade partnerships that encourage local processing, mandate knowledge transfer, protect new industries, and ensure that Chinese investment doesn't lead to local displacement. Use the African Continental Free Trade Area to build continental strength. Let Africa negotiate as a bloc, not as fragmented, under-leveraged nations. And number 6, we need to shift the mindset from supply to sovereignty. This is about more than trade. It's about how we see ourselves as suppliers of cheap input or as shapers of global value. Africa has the raw materials for the 21st century. We have it all. Now we must build the industries, talent, and institutions that make us indispensable on our own terms. Because, my people, China may have dropped the tariffs, but it's up to us to raise the bar and to rise with it. Let's not miss this moment. So, my people, where do we go from here? China has opened its market, the tariffs are gone, the stage is set. But what happens next is not up to China, no. It's up to us. Because this could either be a turning point or just another chapter in a long story of missed opportunities and external dependency. This is Africa's moment to rise, not just in rhetoric, but in revenue, in reinvestment, in real transformation. But it will only happen if we export with intention, build with vision, and refuse to let history repeat itself. We can't afford to keep sending cocoa and buying back chocolate, to keep exporting lithium and importing batteries, to keep shipping off timber and then importing furniture stamped made in China. Make it make sense. This zero tariff deal is not the victory. It's the opening. The real win will come when Africa begins to dominate the value chain, not just supply the bottom of it. And that shift won't come from Beijing. It won't come from Washington. It will come from Accra, from Nairobi, from Addis Ababa, from Lagos, from Kinshasa, from you, from me. Because make no mistake, this is bigger than trade. This is about Africa's role in a new world order. And the choices we make now will echo for generations. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Is this China-Africa trade deal a breakthrough or just a shiny new version of the same old game? And more importantly, do you believe Africa can finally use this moment to break free from the extractive cycle and chart a new path of value, power, and prosperity? What is it going to take? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's have this conversation together. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, subscribe, like, and share this episode with someone who cares about Africa's future. We're not just building a platform here. We're building a movement. And your voice, Your action is part of it. Also consider joining our membership community for exclusive videos and other perks. I have a bonus episode for members only on how you can tap into this China-Africa trade opportunity right now. And if you want to go deeper on an idea, book a one-on-one consultation with me for personal guidance and my strategic input. You can find my booking link in the description. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face-to-faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.